Hey everyone. First of all, big thanks to Jackson because I was here for the 5th edition and it was such a great energy. So when he invited me to come present, I've been really excited about this. So what I'm making is called GitWit, and this is the idea. So there's 2 million or more people that are learning how to code every year. But I think there's at least as many people that get discouraged when they're learning how to code and even give up. And I learned that the hard way when I was teaching coding. And what I learned is that a lot of the reason why people don't give up, why people give up, is that actually it's not the coding that discourages them, but it's it's the tools and it's all of the stuff that comes along with it. It's using the command line, learning how to use Git, learning how to manage dependencies, and these kind of things. So my dream with GitWit is just to create an editor for regular people, something that sort of streamlines all of that, so it doesn't have to be such a burden just to get started making apps. And yeah, for today, it's going to be all demos the whole time. And the best case scenario for me would be to get some great feedback out of today. So that's why I have my contact details up here. But yeah, more on that later. I'm going to show you GitWit. So let me just zoom in a little bit here. Perfect. So this is GitWit, and you can go right to gitwit.dev, and you can start building right away, actually for free without even needing to sign in. So as you can see, you open it up, and there's a React app on the right side that's live rendered for you, and then the code for the app is here, as minimalistic as possible, and we have a few options up at the top. So the main way that you can edit code through GitWit is sort of through this transform option or Command K. And so if I do Command K, I have this option that comes up that says make changes to app.js. So let's just start with the most simple code that we might want to write, add a div. So of course, in the background, we're using an LLM to transform the code. And you can see the code that's new is green. So we have a really clear idea of what the AI is writing, and what the human is writing. Of course, I can make any changes to the code I want as well. Now, that's a super basic example of some code that you might want to write. But we can also do something a little more involved. We could say, add icons. And we could be more specific, but in this case, I'll just use the most basic request. Now, here, this is interesting. So it's not just added the icons here, these green areas, but here at the top, we actually have some dependencies. And that's sort of why this is different than other AI co-pilots, is that we're not just generating the code, but we're also making sure that the dependencies that are installed automatically by this code being generated are correct with the version of whatever dependency it is that the LLM is familiar with. So in this case, it decided to use React icons. And so here we've automatically imported React icons. And if we would go here to package.json, we'll also see that React icons 4.2.0, the necessary version, has been installed automatically. And we can specify particular icons as well, of course. So add a trash can icon for sure. And the LLM will decide which here it is over here, which icon or which library we need. We could also say, you know, add a trash icon from material UI icons, which is another library that also some developers would prefer. And in this case, we would get an error. And I'm not surprised, because when you're working with an LLM, you never know, you know, what kind of code would be generated. And you never know exactly what you're going to get. Now, in this case, I can see from the error that it says, you know, oh, we're missing a dependency. I could try and figure that out myself. Another thing I could do is I could copy this, and I could sort of just pass that on and see if that makes a difference. And now it's installing some further dependencies. And in that case, that worked. It was quite a straightforward error message in that case, which was that another library is missing. So passing that on helped. Now, those are some really basic examples. I'd like to do something a little bit more complex now. Let's try making make a landing page for AI user group. So here we're getting the same. We're getting the icons, and we're getting sort of the icons at the top. As we look through, it's involving those, and then all of the styling is done with Tailwind CSS, which comes out really nice. So there's a basic landing page. We can add something, for example, maybe add a calendar. So there's apparently a dependency, a React library called React Calendar. So that's the one that's been installed here. And we can see here that the right code to integrate that library has been added to the main component. So that's a use state. I've actually never used this library myself. So that's a use state. And then here, it's sort of adding the code so that we can access that date variable later if we need to. And yeah, and then finally just including that library that was included before. So that's a slightly more involved. But let's say we wanted to make, you know, a web app with multiple pages. So first, I probably want to add a nav bar. See, it's still going. The nav bar can be a bit long. Okay, so here's a nav bar. In this case, the nav bar doesn't always come out right on the first time, but I can always undo it, add a nav bar. And if I don't like the way that it looks, I can also add it again. So here we see at the top, now it's using React Router, which is a library that lets you make React apps with multiple pages, and of course some icons. Now I just refreshed to make sure that this is a real error. I think the LLM has come up with something that's very close to correct, but not exactly quite. So we'll try that, passing on that error message to see if it can tackle this one. And it looked like it was probably, I haven't seen that exact error message before, but it looked like it was probably using a slightly incorrect version. The code was probably written for a slightly different version of React Router. So it doesn't always get it exactly right on the first time. But there we go. So here we have our nav bar, but clicking on this doesn't do anything. So what I would love to have is like probably some different pages in my app, where where clicking on those links would add some more pages. So I would say, add a different. Also, let's say make the text change when the user clicks a link. Okay. So we have 3 pages here that were added for us: home, about, and contact. And so we can also change these manually ourselves. So I could just, if I don't want an about page and I want an events page, I could throw that in here and sort of just change that myself. So let's try this. So I have events, contact here, and if we scroll down, we can see these sort of titles, which is the part of the code where which is actually the page that's being navigated to. I won't make you read all of this navbar code to explain that to you, but it's a bit messy. If we look here, we have basically, it's put everything into one big React component. And that's probably not going to expand very well as we want to start building our app further. So another thing I could say is like refactor into multiple components. And this is something that LLMs tend to be pretty good at, especially when it comes to, best practices and styles. By the way, you see these errors sort of coming across as it's generating. That's because it's trying to reload the page sort of as the code is being generated sometimes. So yeah, it looks like there's a small bug here where it says page title is not defined. I'll just see if that's something that is important. It looks like it didn't do a very good job to refactor that, but I'll try again. And if it doesn't work, probably just try it again. I could probably debug this myself, but often it's faster just to sort of, let the LLM figure things out. If this one doesn't work, I'll probably go on to another example. Interesting. Okay. Well, eventually you'd be able to refactor this into something with more components. I don't want to spend too much time on this one example, but this is one other use of it. Now, I'd like to just show a couple of other types of things that you could ask it. So I'll go back to our starting point, and let's try adding like a chart. If we look at the top, we see that the recharts library was added. So that's one charting library. We could ask for another charting library, like for example charts.js, but that one works pretty well. Here it's kind of created the example data, and it's kind of put that in. Of course, as usual, we can edit all of this data ourselves in the editor. No problem. I'm going to try that again that I tried just now, where I said, split into multiple components. because I think that's something that's really powerful that you can do with this. And once it's split into multiple components, see, check this out. We have a chart here at the top. So we have a chart component, and now we have a title component for the chart, and now we have an app. So now we're making real React code now, because the whole power of using React is that we can sort of break big components down into smaller components, which then we can use in different places in our app. Another thing that might be nice is, you see here, it's kind of done the title and the chart. We could ask it to, to use props for those as well, because if we have no props in our components, then they're less reusable. One final thing that we can do, as we're getting our app bigger and bigger, we probably want to not have everything in one big file. Although that works well when you're working with an LLM, it's eventually going to get too big. So what we can do is we can select one of these. We can select one of these components, and then I can do move chart to component/chart.js. And so that's just a nice thing we can do. And of course, I forgot to select the data as well, which is kind of goes with the chart. So I'm going to put that here. And we can do likewise, for the title component, we can do sort of, okay, move that to there. So now we're sort of building a real application, a real multiple component, reusable component application with AI without even writing a line of code. Eventually, we're going to get to a point where we're going to want to write some of the code ourselves. Okay, now I have one more demo that I want to show, and that involves something. I want to do something with a front end and a back end together. However, GitWit is mostly good for front end. So in this case, I've created a backend as a demo, and this is a repository on my GitHub. You can check it out yourself. It's called GPT Vision API Demo, and what it does is, you can see here, it just creates a server, and if you upload a file to that server, it'll pass that to ChatGPT, that image to ChatGPT, and then it will give a response of, for example, what is in this image. So it's just a really basic backend that I can use to make an app on top of it that uses GPT-4 Vision. So let me just quickly open that up in VS Code. And we can see here is, I'm not going to bore you with all of this details, but you can trust me, it's just a regular backend API. So let's start this. I just need to write, yarn start. And so now this is sort of running on my local setup. Remember, we had here in the instructions, we had this curl call. So I could run this with an image, and what I should get back is, okay, this is an image of a person sitting down with a dog. A basic use of GPT-4. But what I would really find useful is if I could quickly use GitWit to make an app that does this, something that's very user-friendly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let's do a webcam. So let's do a webcam view. And here we are. So there's me. And what I would like to have is, let me just say real briefly. So here we're using the React webcam library that GitWit has added. And it's added just a little bit of code to sort of set that up. But then aside from that, it's quite basic. And I think that's sort of the power of a tool like this, is it doesn't need to invent everything from scratch if we can use all of these existing React libraries. So yeah, let's say add a button that takes a snapshot and adds it to a table. Yeah, so I would like to have basically like, oh, I can make a snapshot of this image, and then it's gonna add that to a table. So here, take snapshot. Cool. So it's added an ID and it's added a snapshot. And oh yeah, we want to get the caption for it, right? So so let's do this. There's not like a specified way right now to provide an API, but let's just copy this example. This is the right URL because it's running at localhost 4000. So let's just copy that example and say, when a snapshot is added, make an AJAX request like this to get the caption. Now this is a bit more complex, so I wouldn't be surprised, if this, if there's some mistake in here, making an AJAX request. So as we can see here in this green block that's added, when we click take snapshot, it is going to get, it is going to create a request, send it to this URL, and it's going to upload that file. So I see one mistake first, which is here, we didn't give it the response. We didn't tell it what the response will look like. And here we see the response has a response key, and here it's guessing that it's the caption key. So I'm going to change that. So I'm sure that if we would run that right away, it wouldn't work. But if we change that, now, we take a snapshot. We have caption. Not sure if it's still loading. Let's try it again. Okay, here we have. Let me try that one more time. So let's say when I click add a button, when clicked, gets image caption like this. I've tried this a few times, but it doesn't always get it right the first time. So here, and then once again, here we have, we need to manually put in this, and let's try it. So I clicked capture image and get caption, and we have a no file uploaded. Okay, I'm gonna try it one more time because I know we have to get onto some questions as well. But so add a button, when clicked, uploads the image and gets the caption. And I'm gonna copy this again. Huh? The last example, we're gonna have to follow up on that. I have gotten it to work a few times, but as you can see, generating code, it takes a little bit of persistence. Yeah, I just want to leave you with that last example, and we're gonna go for a couple of questions. So let's say I have a great project, like let's go to, for example, well, let's take this one, which I made, yesterday, and it actually did work. So let's take this one, and then you click, launch. By the way, this is what it looks like, when it works. So let's say we had, a working example just like this, and then you could just click here, launch. And then, well, okay, this is quite large, so we could definitely change this up. but that will give you a URL which you can share with anyone. And we can set this to be a public project or a private project. And we can also download the code, and we can upload that code anywhere. I've turned off comments right now because I think that it helps to generate code faster. What I actually think we can do is, rather than adding comments inline, which will kind of slow down the generation, is we can add them sort of in parallel. So that's something that we want to add in. So for example, when you hover your mouse over a certain line of code, then it will show a description of it. That's a great question.